Chodesh Tov, everyone. Today, Rosh Chodesh Elul. Yesterday, Shabbos was also Rosh Chodesh Elul. And we woke up to the shofar blast, Totav Hashem Ori, and I want to share with you a conversation we had on my Shabbos table. My son Chaim reflected that he's been in a number of yeshivas over the years, two basic yeshivas over the years, and he says in one yeshiva they took Elul very seriously. Every day the Rosh Yeshiva would get up at the bima, would cry out Elul, and everyone would be very kind of into an Elul mode, a more serious atmosphere in the yeshiva. Night Seder was a little stronger than it was perhaps during the rest of the year. Some guys would not step on the basketball court during Elul. There was a certain different aura and atmosphere in the yeshiva. Then another yeshiva he was in, Elul was kind of business as usual, nothing really changed, same starim, same schedule, nothing was dramatic, kind of everyone went around their business. And what is it? Why is it that some people, when they hear Elul and Elul comes, it's like they start to ratchet up the intensity, and others kind of are a little daunted by the Elul experience. Perhaps they would like Elul to disappear. What exactly is that all about? So I'd like to draw an idea from this week's Parasha Shoftim, that perhaps can give us an insight how to handle Elul, how to approach Elul, and perhaps not be so intimidated by Elul itself. So the Torah tells us that there are certain people that when Klal Yisrael is engaged in a melchama, going out for war, they're exempt from war. For example, a person's newly married doesn't have to go fight in the Melchemes Rishus. A person who just planted a vineyard, a person who just built a bayis chadash, and a person who is overwhelmed by a certain fear, rach levav, he also doesn't have to go out to war. So three of these four are people who are involved in something brand new. A person who just newly got married, a person who just planted a brand new vineyard, a person who just built a bayis chadash. So very interesting Gemara Mishnah in Maseches Sota Daf Mem Gimel, where the Gemara, Rav Yehuda, raises the question, what if I didn't build a brand new house? That's not what happened. I have a house, but I decided to destroy the house, knock it down, and rebuild it. And when I rebuilt it, I pretty much built it the same thing. It was perhaps a little improvement here, a little improvement there, a little newer, but it's essentially the same house. Does that create an exemption from warfare? And Rav Yehuda has the statement. He says, if a person is bone bayis al mechono, he took the same exact house and just rebuilt the same exact house, he's chayev. He has to go out to war. That's not called new, that's not called chadash. And it seems from the Mishnah that no one argues on the position of Rabbi Yehuda. He says if you rebuild the same exact house, that's not called new, and therefore you're not exempt from warfare. However, if you take a look at the Perush HaMishnayos of the Rambam writes that the halacha is not like Rabbi Yehuda. The Rambam says when you rebuild the house, with those slight improvements perhaps, but you rebuild the house, that's called a new house. And therefore, you're exempt from going out to Milchama. And it's a little difficult, because in the Mishnah, you read the Mishnah, in Masechet Sota Daf Mem Gimel, no one seems to argue on Rabbi Yehuda, rebuilding the same house is not new. Yet the Rambam says that's called new. So how does the Rambam make that position against the Tana? The Rambam is not one to argue on Tanon. How is it possible? How can you maintain such an idea? So the Bein Ish Chai suggests a very fascinating insight. If you look in the entire Torah, for how many times the word Chadash, new, appears in the Torah? Not very many times. A few times, 4 times, 2 of which are in our Parsha. Bana bayis chadash, but one is in Parsha Shmos. And there we are told, Vayakam melech chadash asher lo yoda es Yosef. A new king emerged who did not know Yosef. There was a new Paro, and he was going to change things up, whereas Yosef, for the prior Paro, the old Paro, was the second in command, was the lorded over Mitzrayim, was in the entourage of Paro himself. Now Vayakam melech chadash asher lo yoda es Yosef. And there's a machlokas, a very well-known machlokas in the Gemara. What does it mean, Chadash? Rav says, Chadash Mamish was a brand new king. The old Paro had died. This is a brand new king. And Shmuel says something no. Shmuel says this is not a new king. After all, Vayakam melech Chadash asher lo yoda es Yosef, that's a bit redundant. It's a bit superfluous, that language in the pasuk. So what does it mean, Chadash? Not Chadash Mamish, not brand new, but Chadash b'dei Yosef. Had a different philosophy, a different outlook, a different vision towards Yosef and Knesset Yisrael. That's also called Chadash. In order to be new, says the Ben Ish Chai, You don't have to be brand new, an entirely different entity. That's not what's necessary. A different direction, a different outlook. The Torah says that's also called new. And that's perhaps the Rambam's understanding. When the Torah tells us, Vayiven bayis chodash, you build a new house, and now you're exempt from war, so does that mean brand new? So Rabbi Yehuda says, if you rebuild the same exact house, that's not called new. That's old. It's the same exact house. The Rambam says, no, a little different direction, a little different orientation. That's also called new. That's not the Rambam arguing on a Tana. That's the Rambam looking at the word Chadash, and what does the word Chadash mean? Does the word Chadash mean brand new? Or does the word Chadash mean a new orientation, a shift in perspective, a shift in philosophy? So perhaps that's the idea over here. And that's what Shmuel teaches us. Vayakam melech Chadash, asher lo yodas Yosef, a shift in philosophy, that's also called Chadash. And maybe that's our perspective as we go into Elul. Because when you think about Elul, I have to change up everything. I have to totally reorient my life in a dramatic and radical way. Perhaps that's too intimidating. Perhaps that's too dramatic. That's something that I'm not ready for. So I go about my business. Elul is no different than any other month. But perhaps if my perspective during these days, as we start to build up towards Yom Noron, if my perspective is I don't have to make radical changes, but a shift in orientation, a shift in direction, slightly different outlook. That's also called Chadash. Rebuilding, renewing, not brand new, but a renewal, a different focus, a different perspective, a different orientation. That's also called Chadash. And with that in mind, perhaps we can approach Elul in a more motivated way, is that we don't have to change up everything, but to start to introspect, to start to reflect, to start to think about where is my orientation? What are my priorities? What should I be valuing and what perhaps is secondary? How should I be using my free time? Where should my focus lie? Perhaps that's the vision of these early days of Elul. And then yes, indeed, when we have that shift in perspective, that paradigm shift, then as we get closer to the days of Rosh Hashanah and then Aseret Yemei Tshuva, then we can start to really focus on those details. Not just the reorientation, but focus on this midah, that action. But that's perhaps what these days of El are all about. So I want to wish everyone a Chodesh Tov, and this should be a month of tremendous growth, a month, most important, of reflection, of introspection, of thinking about the direction that I want to be heading in, where I want to orient myself, how I want to focus my time. And if we have the ability to do that, then we hear that clarion call, the shofar, every single morning, and we say those words of L'David Hashem Ori every single day, we'll know that El is indeed having an impact. It's not just business as usual, but we're growing day by day as we reach the days of Yom Noron Haba Aleinu L'Tov.